Hi, this is Jenny Langley, author of the new Maudsley Training Manual. In this video, we're looking at a really important concept of affirmations and supporting self-efficacy. And this can be quite difficult for carers, especially when they're feeling so exhausted. They've been bombarded with difficult eating disorder behaviours, negative self-talk from the sufferer, resistance to any change. You know, there's nothing wrong with me, I'm fine. And so this exercise really helps carers to focus on what are the positive character strengths and attributes that their loved one has, and to really start to notice when they see any signs of change, and then comment on those, so that it helps to boost the self-esteem of the sufferer. Obviously, sufferers feel very negative and have lots of self-loathing and low self-esteem. And the idea here is that we're praising, we're not saying well done for eating a meal. We're saying I can see that meal was terrifying for you and it took great courage for you to actually go ahead and eat that meal. So you're praising the process rather than actually what they've just done. A really good example of how powerful affirmations can be, there's a lady called Rosemary Bravister, who was one of those revolving door patients in and out of the Maudsley for about 25 years. And she explains how affirmations helped to kickstart her recovery. So one of her nurse carers, a new person, came along and would basically notice any effort that Rosemary made, or she'd focus on the positives rather than what Rosemary hadn't done. So for example, if Rosemary came for breakfast but was unable to eat breakfast, rather than focusing on the fact that she hadn't eaten breakfast, she would say, I could see that you were really struggling this morning, and you showed a great deal of courage to actually come and sit at the breakfast table. And obviously they, at some stage they could talk about, how she's going to stick with the meal plan and that sort of thing. But to start with, the nurse just, noticed all the positive things that Rosemary was doing. And she said it was like pennies in the piggy bank. So every time she noticed something slightly positive, even if it was only 1% of a goal, that really, really helped to sort of build Rosemary's confidence. And Rosemary then went on to recover. And she said that process of affirmations was so important in her recovery process. Rosemary now works as a mentor in the eating disorder clinic at the Maudsley. Okay. Carers often say that it's really hard to do this because they get really caught up in focusing on the negatives, and they want to argue with their loved one. Why did you do that? Surely it would be better to think like this or that, and then it just doesn't work. So carers, what we want carers to do is focus on anything that shows that their loved one is starting to move away from their common eating disorder traits, and that might be social isolation, it might be the avoidance of talking about emotions, it might be being caught up with black and white thinking and rigid rules, and it might be focusing on the detail too much. So any signs that the sufferer is moving away from those normal traits of the eating disorder, it's worthy of comment. So let's have a look at some examples. So examples of the sufferer being able to connect to others in the world rather than isolating themselves. So it might be something like, you were determined to go to your sister's baby shower even though I know you were really nervous about people looking at you. Or it was so lovely to see you having such a lovely time with your baby niece and your granny on Sunday, so connecting with them. Or I realise it takes patience and thoughtfulness for you to explain your gut reaction to a social setting. Or you seem to notice my efforts to support you for trying to change, and so you're starting to look at other people around you rather than just focusing on, the trauma of your own world. Okay, expressing rather than avoiding emotions. So a really great affirmation is always, thank you for telling me how you're feeling. So that's one that you can kind of have as almost like a broken record phrase. If any time your loved one tells you how they're feeling. Or another version might be, it can't have been easy for you to be open about your feelings. Or you might notice that they've done something, wow, you really slammed the door, and then guess the emotion, you seem angry, upset, anxious, frustrated. So it's kind of an affirmation, just noticing that they are in this sort of emotional state. In terms of if they're showing flexibility rather than rigidity, so examples might be, you were able to cope well with dinner being unexpectedly 10 minutes late. I know you find unexpected delays around meal times really difficult. Or you showed courage and flexibility when the restaurant had run out of the meal that you wanted. Or it's impressive that you've been flexible, adaptable, versatile, reflective enough to, and then just say what they just did that showed that. or it takes great strength of character to shift away from your safe rituals. So you're just noticing that they're making those positive changes, and then going for the bigger picture rather than focusing on the details. So for example, I can see that you're able to judge portion sizes just by looking at your plate. It must be a relief not to have to weigh everything anymore. You've come so far. Or it might be you were courageous today to have a day off your Fitbit. You seem more relaxed, and the dog walk was so enjoyable, going at a slower pace and not counting every step. So these are some examples of how you can notice that little baby steps of progress are being made. Okay, so in the workshops, we've got a couple of exercises that we do around doors. The first one we call the kind of naughty child exercise, where the carers split into two groups. So on one side of the room, you've got the carers pretending to be the sufferer, and then on the other side of the room, the carers are role-playing the carer. And so the sufferers then come up with something rather inflammatory, and the task is for the carers to come up with an affirmation, and then of course they swap after they've all had a go. So let's have a look at some examples. So these are, I'll give you some common examples of things that carers think their loved ones might say, or they've got experience of their loved ones saying. So this is a category, there's nothing wrong with me, it's you that has the problem. So sufferers often say this, don't they? So the first one, it's you that has the problem, I'm just fine, F off. And the carer might say, I'm glad you feel fine right now, and I'd like to know if you can help me sort out my problem. So there might be with a little bit of humour there. Second example, I'm fine the way I am, I don't need to change anything, you need to stop being so negative. And the carer might say, thank you for sharing your feelings with me, so that's always an affirmation, and I will think hard about what you've said and how I can approach things in a more positive way. So you know, role modelling, the carer role modelling that they can make changes too is a really positive thing. Okay, the I'm fat fear. So this comes up all the time, doesn't it? So here's some examples that carers have said their loved ones might say. You are just trying to make me fat. And of course, there's a huge amount of fear behind that. So an affirmation might be, I can see that's a genuine fear. It's good that you're able to express your feelings so openly to me. Another example, I can't have supper. I've binged today and not purged, and I've eaten enough. And the carer might say, I'm really impressed you've told me that. It was courageous. I know you're really determined to get your eating under control. Another example, I'm feeling really enormous today. So very common. An affirmation might be, thank you for sharing that with me and letting me know how you feel. Very common one, the violence around the food. So I will not eat this food, and throws the plate on the floor. So a humorous response might be, you have a good right hand throw. And then get them to help you to clear it up maybe. And a final example of this one, when the psychiatrist told me I was looking well, it must mean I'm fat. And this often happens, doesn't it? If a young person goes back to school, the teacher might say, oh wow, you look really well, or going back into the workplace or something like that. So an affirmation, again, thank you for having the courage to tell me that, and I can see you're upset. I'm sorry you've taken that message from the meeting. All of these are really sort of coming alongside the sufferer and showing empathy, as well as giving an affirmation. Okay, then we have a group of that you don't understand, you don't care. Sufferers often say that, don't they? So first example, you never listen to me and it makes me so angry. And the carer might say, it helps me to understand more when you tell me how you're feeling. So you notice a lot of these affirmations are about saying, thank you for telling me how you're feeling in different ways. Another example, results, what results? Why are you interested? You don't care, leave me alone. So that pushing away, which often happens with the older teenagers and young adults. And it can be hard because of confidentiality, can't it? Where the carers don't even know what the results are. So the carer might say, I can understand that's very difficult. I'll think about it and we'll come back to you another time if you want me to. I love you very much and will always be interested in how you're feeling. So showing that real connection, that unconditional love. Okay, then let's have a look at some examples of self-doubt and self-loathing, again, very common. So the sufferer might say, I can't have dinner, you know I can't eat after 1 o'clock, I can't do it. This often happens. So the carer might say, I'm understanding you're finding it difficult to eat after a certain time. It can't be easy for you with all your rigid rules around food. I believe you can do it, and I'm here to help you in any way I can. Thank you for telling me. Another example, I'm finding it really hard now that my sister is having a baby, and I know I'm not going to be able to do anything with my life, which must be terrible to feel like that, mustn't it? So you know, maybe an answer would be, thank you for having the courage to tell me how you're feeling about this. You're such a loving person and will be a wonderful aunt. I believe you will achieve a great many things in your life. So looking forward to the future, and showing that you still believe that they will get through this illness and have a positive, more positive future ahead of them. Another common one, all my friends are going to university. I'm such a freak, a stupid, useless failure. So again, thank you for telling me how you're feeling. So thank you for being open and honest with me. I really appreciate you telling me how you're feeling. You've come such a long way in recent weeks, and your time will come to go to university when you are ready. You're such a talented, determined, strong and courageous boy, and you have a positive future ahead of you. So a whole shower of affirmations in that example. Okay, and then this often comes up, the sort of suicidal ideation or suicidal talk, or just utter despair. So the sufferer might say, I want to die, why don't you let me die? Or they might say, my life is so miserable, I'm such a burden, I can't go on like this. Or I just want to die, you would all be better off without me, you want me to die. And so we do practice, you know, affirmations and responses, because carers find this so difficult to deal with this sort of statement. So examples might be, we would be so sad if you weren't here, you bring so much to our lives, we love you unconditionally and will not let this illness take you from us, our family would be incomplete if you were not part of it, I love you very much and would never willingly let you die. Okay. Then we have a second exercise, which is around the animal metaphors and affirmations. So let's just have a look at a couple of these. The example we give to start with is the sufferer comes out of therapy, gets in the car and slams the door and says, I hate therapy with a passion. And the carer wants to say, well, you have to go, I've paid for 10 sessions, or you know, a kangaroo response might be, oh, this is so awful, let me sort it out for you. Whereas an affirming response would be, it's great to hear that you feel so passionately, so you have that passion, and I'm really interested in your point of view. So there can be humour with that as well. And in this scenario, this is a real life scenario, and actually the mum and daughter ended up having a really good conversation on the way home, because the mum responded with an affirmation rather than being a kangaroo or rhino type carer. So Sam, leave me alone, mum, I'm simply too upset to talk to you right now. And mum's automatic response, for God's sake, Sam, you know we have to talk about this and we need to do it right now. So that's like a rhino response, which is likely to meet with resistance. And affirmation might be, thank you for telling me how you're feeling, let's take a break. So rolling with resistance. James says that bloody therapist is useless and stupid and I will not see him again. Dad's automatic response, come on son, I've already paid for 10 sessions, so rhino. An affirmation might be, I can see you're determined not to see him again. Talk to me about that. Amy, I'm sorry mum, I self-harmed today and I feel really terrible about it. So mum responds with very emotional response, crying. Oh no, we're back to square one. I simply don't know what to say. So a very jellyfish response, which has a sting in the tail, doesn't it, of making Amy feel worse. So an affirming response might be, I'm impressed with your courage and honesty. It really helps when you tell me how you're feeling. So again, feelings really important. And then Ollie, you really need to back off and let me make my own decisions. I'm sick and tired of you treating me like a toddler. Mum's automatic response, I'm just so worried you'll end up back in hospital. I can't bear to think about it. So very much jellyfish and kangaroo. And an affirming response might be, you make a very good point, Ollie, and I will think about that. So sometimes carers find it hard to let go when actually the sufferer is starting to take more responsibility. So in summary, affirmations are really invaluable. So a really good thing to do is, if you're a carer, is write down as many positive characteristics that you can attribute to your loved ones. So it might be things that your characteristics they used to show before the illness, or it might be characteristics they're showing now. So it might be determination, courage, perseverance. It might be loving, caring, creative, eloquent. There's so many affirmations that you can tap into, and sometimes it's really good just to write them down, and then you've got them at your fingertips. But of course they do have to be genuine. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. All of the worksheets and videos can be found at www.newmaudsleykcarers-kent.co.uk. Thank you.